Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a new file. So I'm going to come up and I'm going to click New, and I'm going to get this window up here. Now this window offers me lots of options of different types of files. It looks very confusing, but really all I'm interested in at the moment is I'm making a part. I'm not doing an assembly, that comes later. I'm not doing a drawing, that comes later. So step one is this one up here, create a 2D or 3D object. And in the metric tab, because we're working in millimeters, I'm just going to click this last one here, the one that says standard millimeter IPT. And the IPT stands for Inventor Part File. So that's what we want to do. We're going to choose that and we're going to hit create. Now after a little bit of things getting loaded down the bottom here, we'll be presented with our first blank file. Okay, so I've got a blue background. We can change the colors if we wanted to make the background any color we want. But over here you'll notice these are the default parts that I get with any Inventor file. So at the moment there's nothing in there apart from these. And if I click on the plus of this one called Origin, we get something really interesting up here. We get what's called the X, Y, Z planes. And if you hover over any of these things, let's put this into the isometric mode so you can see them. They show you what those planes are. And basically what it means is that we can work on any of these. We have an X, Y and a Z, and one will represent the front, one will represent the side, and one represents the kind of the bottom or the top. We have to decide which one we're going to work on after when we want to design something. Okay, so I'm going to click on create a sketch. And you see when I've got this thing up for create a sketch, it's actually showing me all of these planes in one go. So really all it's doing is saying to me, which plane do I want to start my drawing on? Usually it doesn't even matter. You can change it around afterwards. But I'm going to start it on this plane here. And I'm going to choose that by clicking on it now. So all it's done now is it's spun it around. And I'm actually looking at the top view. And there's nothing on it at the moment. So if I come over here and I'll choose rectangle, and I'm going to choose a rectangle with a 2-point center. So what that means is it's going to lock to that middle point, and as I click and I move out, it produces this rectangle for me. Now I'm still moving my mouse. Nothing's happening until I actually give it some sizes. So I could click and then resize it afterwards, or I can just type the sizes into the box now. So if I make this one, say 80 millimeters wide, if I press my tab button on the keyboard, it jumps to the next one, and I'm going to make this one about 35 millimeters in thickness. Now it looks like it's off the screen, so I'm going to roll my mouse and bring it into a size that I can see it, and there's my rectangle. When I'm happy with that rectangle, I'm just going to literally click Finish Sketch and click on it. And again, I'm going to roll my mouse to make that a little bit smaller. Now that is what my rectangle is. It's got no depth or height to it, rather. It's only got a dimension this way and a dimension that way. If I decided at some point these dimensions were wrong, I could change them. I could come onto that 35, double click it, and I could change that, and maybe I'll make that 30 instead. Press enter, and I've changed the sizes. So what I want to do now is I want to do what's called extrude. I want to make this shape come into a three-dimensional shape. So I'm going to literally choose the extrude button over here, and then you can see it's automatically started doing it. I've got some options here. First of all, the direction. I don't have to have it going upwards like this. I could actually have it going downwards. It's entirely up to me. I'm going to have it going upwards for the time being. But again, all of these in context menus, so I can move this around by holding this little handle here to get it out of my way. But I've got various options on here. You'll also notice that another box opened, and if I click on here, I get the same kind of options but in a slightly more detailed way. So I can see on here the direction that it's going to actually move something in. So at the moment it's going to go in that direction. I could make it go in this direction, or I could go what's called asymmetrical. So it actually goes from the middle and it goes in both directions. So from that way, the very center's in the middle, and it goes upwards and downwards by the same amount. It's entirely up to me how I do it. I'm going to go in this direction for the time being, and I can either type in where it says 23 here. I could change it to a dimension up here, maybe 60. Or I could actually do it over here and change it. Maybe I'll make it 65. It doesn't really matter where I do those changes. When I'm happy, I simply hit the tick and it will do that for me. Let's just reposition that for you. And you can see that that's my 3D shape. I've already got the ability, if I hold down Shift and use my roll bar, I can start moving it around to see what it looks like. And I can do various things over here to actually make it the way I want it. I can look at it, that's the right hand view. I can swivel it round to the front view and so on. Let's go back to an isometric view. My isometric view is not the way I want it to be, so I'm actually going to move that so that what's called my home view is where I want it to be. So if I want my home view to look an isometric one, so all I would do with that was, if this is how I want it to look when I hit the home button, I come up to the home button, right mouse click on it, and I say set current view as home, and choose this one that says fit to view. So now every time I press the home button, if I move that out of position, every time I hit the home button, it'll return to that kind of view that I want. I can reset that anytime I want, but it's sometimes easier to work in that way. Okay, when I look at this one, I can see that for me it looks like it's too wide in this direction. So even though I've made this into a 3D shape now, there's no reason why I can't go back and change what I've already done. So I simply come over to where it says extrusion, click on the plus. Now you can see if I hover over where it says sketch 2, it's showing me down the bottom here what the dimensions are and roughly where that sketch started from. So the sketch that made this 3D shape. So I'm going to double click it, go back into it again. You can see there's my sketch again. I don't want it to be 80. I'm going to click the 80 and I'm going to change that, and I'm going to maybe make it 60. I'm going to make sure I tick this little tick here to say change it, and then I click finish sketch. So I've edited my sketch, it's gone back, and you can see that that's now resampled to a smaller size for me. Okay, so the next thing I might want to do is I might want to add my my nozzle on the top, the bit that which's got the screw thread on that pours the liquid out, pours the perfume out. So to do that, I'm going to click on this top surface, and I'm going to go for this one that says new sketch or create sketch. That's saying basically create a sketch on that surface. So I'm on the top surface, that's where I want it to be. This time I'm going to use a circle, and I'm going to go for a circle from the center point. So I'm going to click on this one. Again, I'm going to go to my very center point. You can see it locks and changes color. That knows that it's in a correct position for me. And I'm going to click once and just drag outwards. And again, you can see the dimensions of these things changing. I haven't clicked enter yet, or I haven't clicked with my mouse. I'm just going to type in 12 and then press the enter key on my keyboard. So what that's done now, you can see that the thing, once you've actually dimensioned and set something in place, it changes to a different color. Once it's blue, it means it's kind of the sketch is done, and you can kind of click finish because you're ready to go on with something else. So I'm going to hit the finish sketch there. It's not anything at the moment apart from a 12mm diameter circle right in the middle of that particular block. So I'm going to grab my block and drag downwards a little bit, and I might even zoom a bit so we've got see it in a little bit more detail. And what I want to do now is I want to extrude this one, the same as I extruded the rectangle earlier. I'm now going to extrude this one. So I'm going to click the extrude button. It's saying basically what profile do I want to extrude. I'm going to click on this one. You can see it changes color, and it's extruded now. It's extruded to the same dimension as the last time because it remembers I don't want it to be 65mm. I'm going to change that to about 12 and see what that looks like. That looks more useful to me, and I'm simply going to hit the tick because that's good enough for me. That's what I want it to do. Okay, you remember on the one that I showed you earlier, it had a lot of things on it to make it look nicer. It had sort of curved edges and these sorts of things. So what you use to do those are basically fillets and chamfers. So a fillet is a rounded edge, and if you hover over anything, it gives you a little annotation, little animation to show you how things work. And the other one is a chamfer. A chamfer is a flat piece taken off an edge. So let me show you the difference between those two. If I wanted to put a chamfer on this edge here, I would click chamfer, and I would click on that edge. And you can see straight away it gives me a preview of what it's doing. Let me move my little control handle out of the way. It's doing a 2mm chamfer on that edge. If I change that to 5, you'll see the difference. It takes a much bigger amount off. So that's used for taking off sharp, squared off edges. That's called a chamfer. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take it back out. This time I'm going to choose fillet. If I click on fillet, I do exactly the same thing, and you'll notice again I've got a box here I can open up to have more information, or I can just go with this one here, which gives me information in a slightly different way, but the same information. I'm going to choose the edge. There's my edge. Let's put a rounded edge on there, and again this one's set to 2mm. Now once I've got this tool up, I can click as many edges as I want. So if I wanted to make all of these edges rounded, I can even zoom out or zoom in, and I can choose some of the other edges. So at the moment it's making all of these edges 2mm. Now here's a funny one. If I click here, even though we can't see it, it's doing that other edge. There's my bottom edges. There's one there, and there's another one here I can't see. So now I've actually rounded all of those edges, and I'm going to change all of them in one go and make them about 4 instead. So it's a much more severe corner on those things. So that fillet, you can see the red kind of box around the outside is the original square, and the kind of slightly wider red lines on the inside show me what the chamfer's going to, what the fillet is going to look like. I'm going to say OK to that, and I'm going to click the tick. Now I've got my rounded off edges. I can move it around if I want to see what they look like by holding down Shift and using my mouse scroller. Okay, but what I might want to do next is I want to actually put a little chamfer around the base of this protrusion here to make it look like a smoother edge, because you wouldn't actually get one that looks exactly like that if you had a real one. It wouldn't be that sharp, the edge. So again, I'm going to go for my fillet. I'm going to choose the base of here, and on that fillet, now that's way too big, I'm going to make this one maybe 1 mil. I'll have a look at that. That's probably okay with 1 mil, and I'm going to tick it. At the same time, I'm going to do something to the edge here, because if you have a look at a screw thread on something, you don't have a completely flat edge like that. I'm going to put a little chamfer on the top edge here. Okay, that's way too big. That's 5. I'm going to make it 0.5, so 0.5 millimeter, and see what that looks like. That's much nicer. I'm going to tick here, and that's done. Okay, I'm going to click on my isometric to return to the original size and shape. What I'd like to do next is put a screw thread on here, because I want my lid to be a screw top lid. Now if I didn't want it to be a screw top, if I just wanted it to be a push lid, I could leave it flat like this, but I'm going to show you a new thing. I'm going to show you this one up here called thread. So I'm going to click on thread, and again I get some options up here, but it's going to say to me, what do I want to put a screw thread on? Now I could put them on weird things, there's no point in doing that though. I'm going to put it on here where it should be. I'm going to choose screw thread, and I'm not going to go full length. I don't want to go the whole length of it. I'm actually going to make it a particular size, so I'm going to say maybe it'll go down 8 mil of it. And you can see now in the little preview window that the bottom bit hasn't got the screw thread on, and that's often the way that you see with real screw threads. It doesn't go the whole way. If I chose the specification one here, I can actually choose different types of screw threads, and these are all real ones that exist in the world. So if I wanted to make something that was very accurate, that would only use a particular type of screw, I could make the choices here. I'm just going to click OK, and there's my screw thread fixed. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some writing on this thing, and when you do that in plastic or in glass, we're not actually writing on there. What we're going to do is we're going to do what's called embossing, which is this feature up here. And emboss basically means either engrave by making the words stick out from the surface, or be cut from the surface to make a kind of groove type shape. So that's what we're going to have a go at. So I'm going to hover over this surface, I'm going to click, and again I'm going to choose new sketch, or create new sketch, and again it levels it up straight for me, and it says, is this the surface I want to actually draw something on, and that's what I want to do. So I'm going to choose text, and I'm going to click on here to position my text, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to just write something in. So I'll call this one something very simple, like my name. I'm going to highlight it. If I want to change the font to a different style, I can choose a different style. If I want to change the size, I can change the size. So I'll try making this one 10 millimeters, and we'll see what that looks like, and say OK. And there's the text on there. I'm going to hit finish sketch, because that's all I wanted to do with it. But what I can do, I'm going to go back to that front view. I'm going to just position it a little bit differently. So I'm going to move it where I want it. Maybe I'll say it goes there. And what I want to do now is I want to emboss that thing. You'll see over here now it's created a sketch for me, but the sketch itself is just a sketch. It doesn't do anything until I tell it to do something. So if you think about it, it's actually invisible. It's not like getting a pen and drawing on something. These are kind of invisible lines. So on the real object, when we look at it later, unless I do something to it, I won't see those things. So I'm going to choose the emboss feature. It's saying to me, what do I want to emboss? It goes red when I hover over the text. I click on there. It knows now what I want to emboss. You'll see that up here, that profile thing went from red to blue when I made the choice. And I've got the options here of either engraving or embossing. So you can see the difference in that little diagram. It shows me that the emboss one, that blue bit sticking out, is basically saying that the text will stick out from the surface. Okay, this one, if I choose the engrave, it'll take it away from the surface. It'll go inwards. I'm going to stick with this one. Okay, and the direction it's coming from is from the back outwards, which is fine, and I'm going to hit OK. Now you'll notice the first thing that happens is it looks like nothing's happened. It looks like all it's done is delete my text. If I look over here, I've actually got the thing that says emboss on there, and if I hover over emboss, it does show me what it'll look like. However, to see it for real, I need to go into a 3D view, and if I go into 3D, in fact if I spin it right the way around, so we look at the right hand side of it, you can see there's the text sticking out 1 mil from the surface. So if this was made, if this was manufactured, that's what would happen. Let's go back to my isometric view. Okay, there's a couple of things we still have to do. We need to change the material and the color, and we need to basically hollow it out to turn it into what's called a shell. So one of the easiest ways of changing what it looks like is if you come up to the original bit here where it says part 1 and you right mouse click on it, you get a little set of menus, and one of them says properties. If I choose the properties window, open it up, and I've got one there at the end called physical, and under physical where it says material, I've got a whole bunch of different materials I can make it look like, different sorts of plastics and things like that. I'm going to go for glass and choose glass, and I'm going to apply that finish. So that's what it looks like as a kind of clear glass. Let's say close here now. Now I still got the option of changing colors and things on there. So if I want here where it says clear, and I get the drop down and I can change different colors, see what it looks like in dark green. There's my dark green glass. I'll leave it like that for now just for the sake of this demonstration. You can change these again anytime you want. You can use the drop down here, or you can go back and right click and use the properties. Again, it doesn't really matter which way round you do it, it's up to you. Okay, last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hollow out the inside of this by choosing the option for shell. And when the shell command opens, I'm basically going to choose this top face. So I'm going to go up so I can see it properly, right in the middle there. And I'm going to use the setting I've already got there, which is 0.5 millimeters. So it's going to make the thing 0.5 millimeter thick, and I'm going to tick here, and it will whir away a little bit down here. And now if I actually move this around into 3D, we should be able to see that the inside of that thing has been hollowed out. So I've actually got a real bottle there. So if I wanted to, I could pass these dimensions, this file onto a manufacturer, and they could actually make that bottle directly from this design.